Alrighty. Good morning, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Today is Monday, August the 4th. It's basically a brand new month. We had the first day of the month on Friday, but basically brand new month here. We had a bunch of earnings last week. We had a lot of red folder news. It was basically really hectic the past, honestly, last week, just with the amount of volatility in the overall markets. We'll kind of talk about what I'm expecting moving forward here, at least over the weekend. A little bit of a bounce here with the overall markets right off our key levels. We'll talk about some charts, some earnings that we still have. AMD's reporting later in the week. We'll still talk about that. And then some charts, we'll go over that coming into this morning. Before we do that, what's up, everyone? Good morning. What's up, Jeff? Hardtick, what's up, B Roots? Yes, I came back. Yeah, I was away for a little bit. I was just doing some business out in Dubai, but now everything's set up. So now I'm back. What's up, KO Nontali? What's up, everyone? Juan, Stefan, Ryan, AD, Fan, Wayne, Martin, Chris, Jen, Audrey. What's up, Luis, Miss Reggie, Ashley? What's up, Vate, Quitta? What's up, Candy, Hugo, Sam, Sinna, Alan, Ben? Um, what's up, Con, Shane, Darth, Anis, Joseph? Yeah. What's up, everyone? Hope you guys are doing well. First things first, let's go on to the weekly outlook. See if there's any sort of news or major red folder news events coming into today. This week. So really for this week, key economic events, we don't really have too much this week, even orange folder news. The only thing that we do have is going to be ISM here on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, we have unemployment. So basically no red folder news events this week. We do have a couple earnings that we'll talk about here, but the major thing that we had was last week with earnings with Microsoft, right? Meta, Apple, Amazon. Those were the big major news. Those were the big earnings that we had on top of FOMC that happened last Wednesday as well. So the overall market, we end up having a pretty big reaction on high volume plus news. That's usually a signal for a short-term top here in the overall markets. As for earnings calendars, what I'm interested in today, as you can see, we have Palantir after close, we have HIMS, we have a couple big earnings this week. Then on Tuesday, we have AMD. So we'll keep a close eye out on AMD along with SMCI. And then the rest of the week, APP, we have Shopify, right? We have Oscar, we have a bunch of these other earnings as well. So the main thing that we do have is going to be AMD. That is Tuesday after close. As for some of the charts that we're looking at coming into today, let's first start off on the ES daily time frame. First sign of momentum slowing down here on the higher time frames. As you can see, this was with high volume as well, signaling a short-term top. What I like to see moving forward is the reaction that we have off your 6250. This is the first key level of support. If you don't hold this level, I'd like to see a push all the way back down towards your previous retest level being your 6160. So for the ES here on the daily chart, as you can see, we're finding some buyers currently right off our key level support being that 6250. So as you can see, if we go into the 1 hour chart, this was really the key level that we had on Friday. Once we got underneath this 6340, the next logical level was all the way down in towards that 6260 here on the higher time frames. And currently you can see a little bit of buyers kind of stepping in the pre-market, and we're pushing back up and towards now it's going to be this previous day highs. That's going to be a key level here for ES. At least moving forward, what I like to see now is the reaction and if we can build this kind of lower high. So if we zoom out just a little bit, we ended up taking out a key level, which was the area that we broke out from. And this is really kind of this is basically that full model that we had once we had that nice push towards upside. Now we're coming all the way back towards the downside. You can see some buyers are stepping in. As for more downside on the overall markets now, price is personally going to have to get underneath, for me, your last week's lows along with your previous day lows. So our 6260 here on the higher time frames. If you want to see some more shorts, preferably underneath your 6260 is going to be the best short, all the way back down in towards that 6160. If we can maintain above this level, what I would like to see now is the potential push back up in towards the level that we actually broke down from, which is our 6340. So for the ES coming into today and coming into this week, key level for me 6260 here on the higher time frames. If we mark out other levels as well, we can just mark out our previous day highs. If you go into the SPY chart, key levels coming into today is just going to be the same thing, right? 620 here on the higher time frames. If we go into the daily chart, this is the exact level. First sign of weakness last week in the markets. Finally got a strong pullback after a huge rally. What I would like to see now is a reaction that we have off 620. If you can't hold this level, the next one's going to be all the way back down towards 608 here on the higher time frame. So for the SPY, similar thesis here. If we're able to hold this level, we can see a potential short-term bounce here since we do have this big daily gap. The only way we're going to see some more downside is now going to be underneath 620, and underneath 620, potentially we can see your 610 here on the higher time frame. So for SPY, as you can see, some buyers kind of stepping in. We're having a little bit of a gap up here, right back up in towards now. It's going to be your previous day highs. As for the SPY, the levels are fairly clear coming into today. We have our 620 previous day lows. We also do have your previous day high 626. What I personally like to see coming into today now is going to be the reclaim back above your previous day highs. If you can reclaim back above this level hold, we can see this potential push back up in towards now. It's going to be this 630. If we end up rejecting off this level, we could potentially fill the gap back down in towards your 623 and your previous day lows 620. So coming into today, we're going to keep an eye out on your 627 along with this 620 here on the higher time frames. Those are the levels for the SPY and ES. Let's go on to the QQQ. All right, so now we're on the Qs and the NQ chart. First daily candle closed below the previous candle on the daily time frame, signaling a loss of momentum towards the upside. As you can see, this pullback on the daily chart is with large volume. Now we're going to come back towards key levels of support. What I like to see is a reaction off of the 22,870 on the higher time frames. If you can hold this level, if you can't hold this level, the next level is going to be all the way back towards your 22,400 on the higher time frames. So exact same game plan here for the NQ as the ES and SPY. The key levels now is just going to be this 22,800. If we can bounce off this level, we can see a little bit of a mean reversion back up in towards really this 23,200. If we can't hold this level on the higher time frames, then the next logical level is going to be all the way back down in towards this previous retest level here on the higher time frames. Me personally, if you're looking at this from a higher time frame perspective on the weekly chart, what I would like to see is the hold of this, really this pushback down in towards this 610, right? You can see nice break above. If we're looking at this weekly chart, first sign of weakness here on the weekly time frame along with the daily chart. I would personally like to see a dig back down in towards this previous retest level, and then for the buyers to kind of step in off this 610. Similar thing here with the QQQ. It would be really solid if you can get that pullback down in towards that 530 for that continued pushback towards the upside. So if we go back onto the 1 hour chart, key levels at least coming into today will be your previous day highs along with your previous day lows. So key levels we have marked out 559 along with our 552. If we can get above your previous day highs, maintain above your previous day highs, we can see this potential push back up and towards your 564. Another potential long scenario is if it comes all the way back down in towards that 552, you could be looking for buyers to step in off your previous day lows. As for short positions, what I'd like to see is rejection. If it does want to stay heavy, right, that first pop gets shorted above your previous day highs, we could be looking for the potential reversal back down in towards your previous day close and your previous day lows 552. The best shorts, in my opinion, coming into this week is going to be that first pop or Now it's going to be underneath your previous day lows, 552, for this continuation towards the downside. If we can break underneath your 552, we actually have a lot of room towards the downside back in towards that previous day highs. So for the QQQ at least, I'm going to be a little bit more patient towards the downside, at least right off the bat. The best opportunity, in my opinion, is going to come underneath this 552. Since you can see, right, really big push and just kind of push right off the bat, right? A lot of consolidation here. So if we're able to break underneath this 552, we do have a lot of room towards the downside because the next level is down and towards that 540. Similar thing here with the SPY as well. If we can break underneath this key level of support, 620, the next logical level is down and towards your 610. So this can come fairly quick. This basically 10-point move in the overall market can come quick if we're underneath your previous day lows. Anything above your previous day lows is going to be a little bit more difficult, but if you can get underneath that 620, there is a nice setup that can set up later into the week here on the major indices. So that's what we have for at least the major indices coming into today. Let's go on to the tech names that we do have. Thesis for this week: Tesla is just building up liquidity to both sides. As you can see, it is in between 330 and 290 on the higher time frames. What I'd like to see now is a break above or below that level here on the daily chart. So if we're looking at Tesla here on the higher time frames, we're on the daily chart currently. You can just draw this higher time frame wedge pattern. You can see just multiple touches on both sides here on Tesla. We also had earnings 2 weeks ago as well. Not really clear direction on earnings. We filled the gap to both ways, and now we're just back towards the downside. So for Tesla, coming into today and coming into this week here as well, the key levels I'm going to have marked out. Number one, 300 here on the higher time frames, and then towards the upside, we're going to draw this higher time frame trend line. We can also draw out another trend line here as well, which is going to be this 314 is going to be your general area. So for Tesla coming into today, what I'd like to see for some more downside, only way I'm interested in more downside, breaks the trend line, breaks underneath their previous day lows for a potential continuation towards the downside. As for any sort of upside here on the overall markets, I personally like to see number one, reclaim back above your previous day highs. But for me personally, I like to see it above your 314. Above your 314 is basically equilibrium here on Tesla. I like to see kind of the buyer step in above this level. So for Tesla, 314 and your 300, you want to keep an eye out on coming into today. Other levels we can have marked out is just going to be your previous day highs. So we can mark this out, and we can also drag this one over. Oops. Let's do this. I'm not sure why it's not loading, but yeah, we can have this marked over. Let's go on to the next chart that we have here, which is Nvidia. So right now, Nvidia is pulling back with the overall markets. This one is still the strongest on the higher time frames. Higher time frame structure is still intact and holding key levels. What I like to see is it maintain above 170 or the reclaim above our 174 for continuation back towards the upside. So for Nvidia, as you can see here on the higher time frames, really the semiconductors have still been the strongest names towards the upside. So if we look at the SMH here, you can see this one just pulling back in towards kind of key levels along with the overall SPY. But the SMH and the overall semiconductors are still holding up, especially Nvidia along with AMD. So for Nvidia, you can see overall markets dropping, Nvidia basically holding up a little bit more, holding up, and the market structure is still intact here. So the key levels for Nvidia coming into today is going to be this 174. So for Nvidia, this is basically the area that we broke out from. You can see previous resistance turn into support. On Friday, we just kind of consolidated around this general area. Now, if we do want to see some more upside, maintain above your 174, break back above your previous day highs for this continuation back towards the upside. Only way you're interested in downside on AMD, in my opinion, you want to be very cautious on downside just because overall higher time frame is still very much bullish. There's definitely better names you could be looking for relative weakness on the higher time frames. But for Nvidia, Preferably, you like to see it underneath this 174 and underneath your previous day lows. But I just would not recommend shorting Nvidia as of yet, just because, right, overall higher time frame bullish. I'd much rather look for long positions towards the upside. So key levels we can have marked out is going to be this 176.50. So coming into today, this is your previous day highs. This is the level we like to see it above for long positions towards the upside. Another scenario we could be looking for kind of base above your 174.50 for this pushback towards the upside here as well. So overall, semiconductors still showing strength here on the higher time frames. As for Apple, thesis coming to this week, Apple had earnings last week and now is breaking towards the downside after the long consolidation it's had. What I like to see moving forward is the reaction that we have off 200 and 196 key levels of support. So for Apple here on the higher time frames, we actually just had news, which was earnings last week, and we broke outside of this consolidation that we had. So for Apple, you can see basically consolidated for the whole July, really in this very tight range, 215 along with this 207. We just had earnings last week that ended up driving this towards the downside. As for Apple now, what we're going to keep an eye out on is a couple key levels. Number one, what I have marked out here is going to be this 200 key psych, and then have your levels down below, which is going to be this 195. So for Apple, we just recently had earnings. You can see day one kind of sell off towards the downside. What I personally like to see now is coming into this morning is most likely kind of the pop and fade down in towards your previous day lows, along with this 200 key psych level here on the higher time frames. Though that's really kind of where I want to see the buyer step in, 200 and this 196. Only way for some more upside, in my opinion, is going to be above your 207. That's the level that we broke down. That's the day that we had earnings, the low that we had, and this is kind of equilibrium here as well. So 207 is going to be key for Apple, and we can also mark out kind of this pre-market level, intraday level from Friday is going to be this 205. You like to see pop and fade off that level. As for the next charts that we have, as for AMD, AMD, one of my top watches for a bounce towards the upside. This name has been a big winner in the past few months and expect continuation towards the upside as the market bounces. Key levels for me are 168 for a pushback towards 180. So AMD does have earnings coming into this week. That is going to be Tuesday after close. If we're looking at the past really 20 to 40 sessions, you can see AMD has been one of the winners for the past 20 to 40 sessions on really this big push towards the upside. So for AMD right now, you can see it's just coming back down in towards key levels, which is that 168, at least coming into today. What I like to see now is it maintain back above your previous day highs, 175. For this potential push back up in towards, now it's going to be this 182 here, your higher time frame key level. So 175 hold, we can see a push back up in towards your 182. As for AMD, if it gets underneath this 175, we can see this potential mean reversion just back in towards your previous day highs, in between your previous day highs and previous day lows. So AMD, I personally like to see hold of that previous day highs for that continuation. Today, I'd be interested in looking for to trade this today. As for tomorrow, it has earnings after close, so you wouldn't trade this tomorrow. But you can be looking for opportunities today if the IV is still relatively low. The next chart that we have here is Meta. Nice gap up with earnings last week on this name. This one is at all-time highs, but now it's starting to pull back towards the previous all-time highs level and the gap fill that it does have. What I like to see is the reaction that we have off the previous all-time highs level being your 740. So 740 here on Meta is key. You can see some buyers kind of stepping in here in the pre-market. At least from a higher time frame perspective, you can see nice kind of cup and handle that we end up forming with earnings, nice push towards the upside. Now we're coming back for the potential retest of your previous all-time high. So this is the exact level we like to see it maintain above, which is your 740 for any sort of continuation back towards the upside. So as you can see here, on the 1 hour time frame, let's actually just go into the 15-minute. You can see kind of buyers stepping in right off this 740. And now you can see a little bit of a gap up right off the bat in the pre-market. Key levels that we're going to have marked out now is just going to be your previous high that we created along with the low. So we can just drag this out, which is going to be this 765, your low that we created after this earnings gap up along with your previous day levels. For long positions on Meta, get above your 765, hold above your 765 for potential continuation. As for weakness, if we do just reject off this level, we can see this push back down in towards your previous day close along with this 750. This is something you don't want to see if you are interested in longs. You have to see the reclaim today for this potential continue push back towards the upside, or right defends off this 750 higher time frame key level. As for the next chart that we do have, Amazon pushed down last week with bad earnings. You can now see that this is back towards the key levels of support. What I'd like to see is the reaction that we have off 214 and the 207 here on the higher time frame. So for Amazon, this one had earnings last Thursday along with Apple, which ended up dropping the overall market towards the downside. As you can see now, we're just coming right back in towards key levels, which is this 214. For these earnings type of plays, the key levels is just going to be your previous day highs along with your previous day lows. So for Amazon, what we're just going to have drawn out. Now we can actually refine our levels if you'd like as well. But basically what we have is our 215, and we also have your previous day highs marked out 219. So for more upside, preferably above your 219 previous day highs for continuation. Downside only occurs underneath this 215 key level. So you like to see it underneath 215. Stay heavy for this push down in towards that 208. So you're just going to keep an eye out on your previous day highs along with your previous day lows on Amazon coming into today. Alrighty, so yeah, that was kind of the weekly outlook, at least for the major indices and some of the major tech names that we have coming into today. If you guys do have any charts or any tickers you'd like me to go over, you guys can drop them in the chat now and I'll take a look at them. If you guys are enjoying the pre-market preps, I appreciate if you guys drop me a like and sub. Free watch list is in the description down below. It's basically a recap of what I look for coming into the morning every single day. So that's in the description below. If you guys want to live trade with me, that's also in the description below as well. All right, let me grab some water here. What's up, everyone? Good morning. What's up, everyone? Good morning. Can someone tell me the drawing tool is called Zoom It? It's called Zoom It. If you're on MacBook, I think it's called, I forget what it's called on Mac, but all I know is on PC, it's free. It's called Zoom It. Drop a like. It's a trading view. Yeah, there's a trading view plus the actual drawings on the screen are not trading view. Hey bro, would you use TradeZilla at all? Yeah, I personally use TradeZilla. You can use any journaling platform, right? I'm not sponsored by TradeZilla, but you can use TradeZilla, Notion, any journaling software that does it automatically for you. You don't really have to manually input it is good. Okay, Hood, when you get the chance, it looks like heavy resistance. All right, let's see Hood. Yeah, it's getting a little bit heavy here up at this like 108 key level. As for Hood, the levels that we're gonna have marked out coming into today is really this like 101. We also have this like 98 key level here as well. So personally, what I like to see for Hood, at least coming into today, you can see a pretty big day here on Friday, is it now maintain kind of above this like 99. There's both kind of key levels here since we have multiple touches. I'm going to go with this level here, which is just your 99 key psych. But for Hood, now what we like to see is really maintain above your 99. This is a higher time frame key level if we want to see any sort of upside in the overall markets. Preferably now, if you want to see some more upside here as well, break above your previous day high. So if you can now build up your higher lows based off of your Friday's lows, we can see this kind of push back towards the highs here on Hood. Overall, higher time frame still very much intact on this one. If you are looking at this daily chart, we have very key levels of support. Being that 99, we also have your 90 key level of support here as well. Overall for Hood, higher time frame still very much intact. You just like to see a little bit more consolidation on the higher time frames and then eventually right that push back up in towards your all-time highs. As for Palantir, a little bit of a pullback here as well. Key levels that we have on Palantir is this 155. And now you can see so far we're trying to defend this level here on Friday along with the pre-market. Overall higher time frames, as you can see, if you're just to draw out this kind of trend line, general area, you can see Palantir buyers are kind of stepping in right where it's supposed to. Now what we like to see is a push back up in towards your previous day highs along with your last week's highs here as well. So for Palantir levels we can have marked out. Previous day highs 158. If you want to see some more upside here, we like to see kind of the base above, right? Break, retest, continuation back up and towards this 160 here on the higher time frames for Palantir, right? 158 is going to be key. As for HIMS, this one pushing nicely back towards the highs here. We do have earnings today on this ticker. So we'll see what kind of shapes up with earnings coming up. But as for HIMS on the higher time frames, key levels that we have marked out now is really the 67. If you go into lower time frames here, levels we can actually have marked out as well is just going to be this level here, which is your 66. So for HIMS, at least coming into today, you can see multiple touches off this general level, which is your 66 for some more upside. Hold above your 66 for continuation. If earnings comes in bad, breaks underneath their previous day lows, we can see a little bit more continuation towards the downside. But we'll take a look at HIMS here tomorrow, just because this one does have earnings after close. As for Uber, let's go here on the higher time frames. Uber recently hit our all-time highs and we're just slowing down just a little bit. Higher time frames still very much intact because we are holding this previous level of resistance, turning into support, kind of building higher lows off this level. Also filled this daily gap after this original push higher. As for Uber now, what I like to see is fill this gap back towards the upside that we do have. So if we're to mark this out, you can see we have a very small gap back towards the upside. Now what I like to see is kind of this push back up in towards your 90-50 here on the higher time frame. So if we look at this name, key levels today, showing some nice strength here in the pre-market, reclaiming back above your previous day highs, pushing back up in towards your Thursday's highs here. Now what we like to see is it maintain above our Thursday's highs if we want to see any sort of continuation back towards the upside. So preferably above your Thursday's highs, maintain for this continuation back up and towards. Now it's going to be this 90 key psych level here on the higher time frames. That's what we have for Uber. Let me go over some other ones here as well. Let's see. Do I trade options? Yes, that is correct. Let me go over some of these ones. As for Oracle, this one's pulling back just a little bit here as well with the overall markets. Now the key levels for Oracle is going to be this 247. This is the level I like to see reclaim if you want to see any sort of pushback towards the upside. As you can see, end up holding this level on this original push higher. Now that we're back underneath this level, it's going to have to reclaim back above 247 for any sort of continued pushback towards the upside. As for Shopify, this one has earnings this week here as well. I personally like this one for kind of this higher time frame cup and handle. So for Shopify, I'd like to see it maintain above this 117. If you can maintain above this 117, buyers can step in. We can see this push back up and towards this 130 here on the higher time frame. So that's what we have for Shopify, right? That's the key level that we have marked out as well. Now, if you can get above your previous day highs, we can see this push up in towards this 122. Other names that we have, AVGO, right? Semiconductors are still showing strength here on the higher time frames. Key levels, previous day highs, we can have marked out. What I like to see now, maintain above your previous day highs for a push up and towards this 296. Overall higher time frame still bullish as long as you maintain above this 288. As for a few other names here, we can take a look at Coin. This one recently had earnings. And we end up having this pretty big push towards the downside after rejecting off your all-time high. So you mentioned for Coinbase, right? The key level that we had was your all-time highs, 430. And this is the exact level you can see sellers stepped in off of. And I can see reversing here with earnings that we had last week here as well. So for Coinbase, really just straight push towards the upside. We have no levels of support until all the way back down and towards this 260. So for coin, it's going to be a little bit trickier in these general areas. We're going to have to base it off of intraday price action. But for Coinbase, right after, we're either going to be looking for kind of the reclaim back above your 340, or now it's going to be all the way back down and towards that 260, next best level of support. As for key levels coming into today, what we're going to have marked out is just going to be your previous day lows, 312, along with your previous day highs in this case, which is your 336. And then of course you can mark out your pre-market levels here as well, which is going to be this 324 along with this 320. As for SoFi, quick kind of overview on SoFi. This one, really strong push, very much still bullish here on the higher time frames. Had a little bit of reaction off of our key levels, which was expected, which is this 25. You can see some sellers kind of stepping in off this general area. This is your double top. So this is a good area. You can see kind of sellers stepping in, at least on the weekly time frame. You can see pretty big wick towards the upside along with earnings. So this is definitely a little bit of a short-term top here for SoFi. Now we're just kind of back inside this consolidation period. If you want to see some more upside, daily candle close above this 23. If you're looking for some downside, it's going to be underneath this 21 key psych. So for SoFi, key levels we just have marked out, right? 2270. And then the low of the range here is just going to be this 21 key psych level. Okay, let's see. Thanks for the info. Appreciate it. Spotify rose considerably in the pre-market. Should we expect, let's see, Shopify, or talk about Spotify. Let's go into Spotify here. So Spotify coming up, we had earnings last week on this name. So now we're coming back up in towards the next level is going to be all the way towards this gap fill here. So for Spotify, this one's looking nice, kind of defending this earnings low, breaking it back above this 652. Now we like to see it maintain above your 652 for this potential push back up and towards. Now it's going to be all the way back towards this 680 here. Yeah, 680. We can also have this marked out. It's going to be this 685. So this is the key level here for Spotify. Really this gap fell back towards the upside. Amazon wise and previous day low, one of your key levels. It just have multiple touches, right? Previous day lows in combination with kind of this pre-market level. They're both very key. You can mark out your previous day lows. I personally just like this one just because we had earnings and there's a lot of volume around this general area. Normally speaking, I'm just going to usually mark out your previous day highs and your previous day lows. But in this case, I think it just lines up with the higher time frame key level here as well. Hey Jack, good morning. Would you mind sharing metrics aside from rating entries, scaling, emotions, entries, and exits? Would you mind sharing which metrics aside from rating your entries, scaling, motions, and exits are you measuring in your trades? Those are the main metrics. At least from a technical speaking, in keeping it as mechanical as possible, you're just gonna have those metrics, which is like time. You can have other things as well, right? Time, scales, right? The actual size in itself. At least for other metrics in regards to emotions, you can also have those marked out as well, right? How are you feeling while you're in the trade, right? How are you reacting to certain candles or right certain setups, and really kind of throughout the trade, right? Are you the emotions that you're feeling, right? You're feeling fearful, right? You're feeling FOMO, greed, right? How are you feeling while you're in those trades? Nice hotel room. Yeah, that hotel room is actually crazy. Like your 720, very quick. Let's see. APLD. I trade UK 100 every day from 815. Nice. APLD. Key levels on APLD. This one's pushing back up nicely here as well. Also had earnings last week. You can see the actual first dip got bought up. So after earnings, first dip so far getting bought up here right above our key levels, which is our 12. Now we like to see maintain above 12, push back up and towards 14. So above now your previous day highs on APLD, we can see a push back up and towards our 14 key psychological level. So what I like to see maintain above 12. Or now it's going to be the break above your 13 for this continue push higher. So you could be looking for your bounce off of your 12, or now it's going to be above your previous day highs. Let's see. What is your expectation with the stock market over the next 4 weeks with good earnings but weak economic data? So yeah, so at least from a higher time frame perspective, so we just had earnings, a bunch of earnings last week. We have FOMC last week here as well. At least from a higher time frame perspective, what I'd like to see is personally this retest. Historically, August, a little bit of a slower month, usually a more bearish month here on the overall higher time frames. If we can get this retest, that would be perfect. That's super healthy here as well for the overall markets. If we just end up pushing back towards all-time highs, we can be looking for that as well. But I would love this pullback down in towards your previous all-time highs level on both the major indices, because this would be super healthy. This is the exact previous all-time highs from earlier from February. If you can get this retest level on the SPY and the Qs, super solid, right? So that's what we're going to be looking for, at least potentially on the higher time frames, which would be the daily and weekly, at least for intraday, right? We're always going to take it day by day, but key level is going to be this 552. We also have this 558. So at least from a higher time frame perspective, on the weekly time frame, I would like to see a pullback down in towards that level. At least intraday time frame, we're just going to take it day by day. Now we're going to be a lot more interested in playing both sides in the overall markets. As you guys know, I haven't traded any setups towards the downside in the past few months, just because the overall higher time frame is bullish. But on Friday, right, we kind of identified on Thursday, right, a big kind of volume day here on the overall markets with FOMC, with earnings as well. Your close that we had all the way back at this 564. So that's why coming into today, at least key level, previous day highs. As I mentioned, I'm going to be open to playing both sides here on the SPY and Qs. If it rejects off your previous day highs, I'll be looking for this gap fill reversal. If we can break above and hold, we can be looking for this gap all the way back in towards this 564. I don't have any funds to trade the options. I'm trying to get funds of micro futures. Nice. Yeah. There's different ways. Instruments don't really matter as well, right? You can trade options, stocks, futures. Prop firms are always a good alternative if you're starting out. NVTS. Have you ever noticed your setup works less on Mondays? Have you ever felt that? It just depends. If you're trading on the major indices themselves, generally speaking, Fridays and Mondays are lower probability days, at least on the major indices. If you are looking for like higher time frame breakouts, then right, it depends on what setup you take. If you're taking the open, are you talking about the opening range, or you're talking about right your previous day highs, previous day lows, right? There's a bunch of other setups as well. As for NVTS key levels that we have marked out is our 918. You can see multiple wicks kind of above this 918. Now what we like to see for the reclaim is going to be a break back above. We can also mark out your previous day highs. You can just mark this out. This is going to be a key level. And then we can also mark out right 780 here as well. So for NVTS, preferably now for long side above your previous day highs, hold for this continued push back up and towards our 850 here. How do you choose your strike price? Strike price occurs weeklies plus use, right? Most of the times it's going to be weekly contracts, one at the money, or I'm going to choose the one with the most volume. IWM. So IWM here on the higher time frames, key levels that we have is our 212, 214, and then the area we broke down from, which is our 217. So for the overall markets, at least for IWM, I'd like to see kind of the reaction that we have off your 217. Reject off this level, we can see continuation lower. If you can reclaim back above 217, potentially we can see this mean reversion back towards upside. Last time I got in here, I thought you were going to go live trade, so I was so sad, but it's still pretty. Yeah, this is just the pre-market prep. So these ones happen every single day from 8 a.m. to around roughly kind of this 840, which is it's 840 round. It's basically 840 right here. See, not sure how to set stop loss. If I buy one contract 600, should my risk be $60? Negative 10 contracts 600 loss. All profit for July 1st help. Let's see. If you're risking, if you buy one contract $600, should the risk be $60? Oh, so okay, I see what you're saying. So you're either, if you want to risk $600, are you gonna have right 10 contracts with $60 worth of risk? Or are you going to have like one contract for $600? It really depends on your stop. So if you risk 10 to 20%, which is primarily what we give it, right, closer to 20% per contract or around 15 to 20%, then you can base the math off that. The only way guaranteed you're going to have it is if you size in for zero. So if you have $600 worth of risk, you can just size in for $600. But we personally day trade, we only need to give it 10 to 20%. So that's basically what our stop is going to be. So for Figma, this one, recent IPO, key levels you're going to have marked out, previous day lows, which is your 110. You like to really see the buyers kind of step in off this 110 key level. Preferably now you like to see it above this 125 here as well for this potential pushback up and towards your 147. I would be a little bit cautious here if you can get underneath this 110 because there's not really any levels to base it off of. And it's going to be all the way back down in towards your 85 here on the higher time frames. Same strategy, but one thing I feel like missing would be relative strength. How would you compare that to the ES and NQ? Yeah, exact same thing. You just look at the ES and the NQ, right? You look at the divergence between the two. Normally speaking, there's not too much relative strength between ES and NQ, but what you would be looking for is divergence. For pre-market, you always refer to the last 2 to 3 days prior to decide the higher and low. Exactly. They're just always old highs and lows on the chart. Very good. I just prefer to trade the NASDAQ. Nice. Do you hold your own options longer than a day or stick with the opening range break? Opening range break is just a setup, right? Primarily, if we have the opening range break in combination with higher time frame setup or the previous day highs, right? If there's multi-day runners, I'll look to hold for continuation. Currently, right now, I would not hold anything for longer than a couple hours just because it's very volatile. Things can move fairly quickly. When there's volatility, right, even if you do get a good entry, if it's not a swing trade or a long-term position, you have to be very careful. If you're day trading, right now you only have to hold for maybe 1 to 2 hours max, and you can get a really solid trade just because there's a lot of opportunity and volatility in the market. So you only have to hold it for 1 to 2 hours. If you have a higher time frames are clear, we have solid news or higher time frame or daily breakouts, then we could be holding for 1 2 day continuation moves. Okay. I realize it's 8:43 here as well. So let me kind of go over my game plan and then I will call it a day here. Okay. Sound keeps cutting. Yeah, if the sound keeps cutting off, most likely you just have to reset the stream. It should be fine. Okay. For the game plan coming to today, as for the SPY and Qs, fairly clear. It's just going to be looking for the reaction off of your previous day highs. That's going to be the key level that we have marked out today here on the SPY. As for the QQQ, similar thing here. It's going to be your previous day highs, 558. Let's see the reaction. If we reject, we're going to see this gap fill back towards the downside. If we can reclaim, we can be looking for the push right off the bat for a potential move back in towards your 564 here on the higher time frames. As for my main watches coming to today, I'm just going to color code it real quick. I'm going to mark out Tesla. This one looks solid above your previous day highs hold for a potential push back up and towards this 314. Nvidia looks good here as well if you can reclaim back above this 176.50. As for a few other names I do like, Apple, I'm actually only interested in this one for kind of this like pop and fade if the market does want to stay heavy just because it had earnings last week. As for Microsoft, I'm not interested in this one just because now had earnings last week, selling off. As for Meta, I am interested. We do have this pretty big gap towards the upside. Now we're retesting where your previous all-time highs. What I like to see now here for Meta is going to be the break and hold back above your 764. If we can consolidate, potential push up and towards the 764. Another possible scenario above your 764, continuation back towards the highs here on Meta. As for Amazon, I would just be interested, just keep an eye out on the reaction, no buys here on Amazon. And then really for the rest of the names, Google potential reclaim, AMD I still like here as well above your previous day highs. Let me actually just readjust this level just a little bit here. Let me just readjust this. Key level for AMD above your 175 for continuation hold for this pushback towards the upside. So really my main names coming to today, we'll keep an eye out on the major indices themselves off your previous day highs. And then with Tesla, Nvidia, along with AMD, they're above your previous day highs. So we'll look for now the hold above your previous day highs for this continued push back towards the upside. As for some downside, if the market does want to stay heavy, keep an eye out on Apple along with Amazon. As for at least other names on the tech side, we do have a bunch of earnings on these ones like Palantir, right? HIMS, right? Be cautious on these ones just because we do have earnings on these names coming up. AMD also has earnings as well, and then SMCI and a bunch of other ones. So keep an eye out on this earnings calendar. That's really the only thing, at least this week, since we don't have any red folder news besides Tuesday and Thursday. Only thing we have here is earnings, right? Make sure you have this calendar marked out and right beside you if you're going to trade any of these names as well. So that is going to be it for me today. I'm going to get ready for market open. As always, if you guys did enjoy this, I'd appreciate you guys drop me a like and sub. If you guys want to join the watch list, that is in the description below. And if you guys want to trade live with me every single day, that is also in the description below as well. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.